Okay, so back to chapter 1. Here is the first guiding question, and you guys are talking about it, and I'll try to put your thoughts on the board as you're talking, okay? So, this question was, is our narrator reliable? Can we believe what he is telling us?
Yes.
Discuss.
We can.
You're talking to each other.
I think we have to.
Okay.
I think that
Okay.
Tommy,
Wait a minute.
wait, we all talk
Okay.
among us, or
We're going to start over. Okay. You are talking as a whole class. So you're not going to turn to one person and discuss it. You're going so when you're talking, talk loud enough for the whole class to hear. Okay? And everybody, I mean, you can turn and look at that person. All right? And so if one person starts talking, let's say, Marisol starts talking, and let's say Lily starts talking at the same time, you guys kind of say, decide who's going to go first. And I think you guys can do that in a respectful way. So just maybe do you think we should stand up when you talk?
yeah, stand up and talk. Just stand up and then let's say
It's up to you.
Yeah.
If you want to stand up and talk, you can, but we don't want a couple different people talking at the same time.
Alright, stand up when you
Okay?
talk.
But as soon as one person's done talking, someone else can say what they think. Okay? So now, I know this is kind of tricky, so if it doesn't work to do it this way, then we'll maybe do it, like the other way where you have marbles and I'll go to a person and then I'm keeping track of who's talking when for a grade. But I'd like to just have a conversation if we can. So, is our narrator reliable, and can we believe what he's telling us? What do you guys think?
I think our narrator is reliable because he was actually in the situation, and it's first person because he says I. You don't hear his name very often.
Good. Are we done?
Okay, we're not doing that. We are not clapping after what people say. We're just continuing to add to the conversation.
I do not believe the narrator is reliable because he could be biased because he's in that situation and only on one side. Honestly, the only reason why I say this is because
Your opinion's wrong.
Well, he got served by being beaten up, right?
Yeah.
He's walking somewhere.
Alright, I'm going to stop you again. What I'm hearing are other conversations going on, even within the big conversation. We can't have that happen if we're going to have a whole class discussion. So if you have something to say, you're saying it to everybody, not just to the people around you. Okay? Alright.
I think it's still, he's still reliable. It may be stretched a little, but I don't think he would make up the entire story because he is in that situation. But it could be it could be stretched a bit.
okay.
But y'all
Sit down.
You say yeah, I hear you.
yeah.
Alright, another reason it's reliable is I don't think
Loud enough for everyone.
the other reason why I think the narrator's reliable is because I don't think anybody would want to tell anybody they killed somebody. If that makes sense. I wouldn't go up to somebody and say, I'm ready, look, I'm killing somebody.
That's why he's reliable?
Yeah, because he wouldn't lie about killing
Because
somebody.
he would be reliable because he wouldn't go make up a whole story about that because there's already something you want to.
But just say
Get
the lie.
arrested.
Tell us his life.
Unless your name's Logan.
I'm 13.
Okay? One at a time, stand up or at least loudly say what you're thinking. Tommy, if you have something to say, just say it loudly for everyone.
I also think it's reliable just because there wasn't a lot of blank spots. It was descriptive in all the areas. It wasn't there was kind of a stretch story. It all lined up and made sense.
Okay, so you're saying the story made sense?
I agree with Logan.
Okay.
take it back. I don't agree with him.
Can you support that, RM?
Yes, because now I don't like it.
Because why?
I'm sad now. Well, yeah, I don't think he's a reliable goal. He would be my reason for
Because of this, you said because he's one-sided.
It seems like there's a
You,
little more
Logan
emphasis.
says he's reliable because he's in the situation. RM says he's not reliable because he's in the situation because she said it's one-sided. Anybody want to go with that?
I also think it'd be reliable, just because if he wasn't in the situation, it could be a lot more biased, because that means he's a second-person view, or he'd be hearing the story from someone else, and it can get mixed up and messed up that way.
Okay.
Well, it could be like in an argument. Sit down.
Sit
All right. That's stupid. You look like a clap.
I don't know what to do.
I think that. Wait, what was your thing? Oh, because
Stop.
it was. What was your thing again? What did you say? What did you say?
I said he's more reliable just because he was in the situation, but like if he wasn't in the situation, then it might be a little more biased because it's a secondhand story, but he'd be hearing it from someone else.
True.
How you gonna define that?
Well, let's say like you get in an argument with someone and then you're telling someone about the argument. You're obviously going to exaggerate it so it goes in your defense.
Well, there's a little bit of exaggeration to say I killed someone.
I killed her family.
Killed Tommy, man.
Well, that was all.
I mean, he did kill someone with a switch.
Anyways,
so.
I feel like
Absolutely.
If you have something to say it to the whole
You know what?
class.
I feel like no one exaggerated so far. Like I killed someone. I like in this stupid church running from the police or whatever. I don't think anyone exaggerated it that much.
Yeah, also with Tommy, just because there's
We don't say exactly.
there's a certain distance that you can exaggerate some before it goes too far. Like if I
Not here.
Really?
The sixth graders? I'm not sure where the sixth graders are.
Maybe.
Mr. Ellis.
You're right.
yeah, Mr. Ellis,
Okay.
back to the story. Also, there's like a certain level you can like exaggerate something. Like if I said punch Nathan, you could say I beat him up, but not to the point I said I could kill him.
Yeah, like there's a point where.
There's a point where an exaggeration goes
Kind
too
of
far.
easy because we are talking about
Someone else
Callie,
taught
that's
me.
not part of the conversation.
Well, 2.5. Why?
I think
Yeah, like
bias because this talks about like the times that this side attacked the other side. The greasers.
That's actually a lie.
literally
There's
said in the book.
so much text evidence against that. Mr. Well, he just said it doesn't talk about the time they greasers went against the soldiers. We're not going to talk about all the times that he said Dolly jumped somebody.
I also
Whatever
think,
it is against the
that-
other guy.
Who's talking right now?
Oh, I'm
Lucas,
just saying.
Lucas has something to say.
Oh, I'm just saying that it doesn't talk about the greasers attack. There's a lot of text evidence that says he does. Like saying Dolly is over there. He probably destroyed that name, but
Dilly dally.
jumps some socials, and the other person who starts with a T. I don't want to butcher his name, so I'm not even gonna do it. Jumps more socials, and it talks about that time and time
But it
again.
doesn't talk about
So I don't really think that point is valid.
Those people convinced me.
Also, I think that the reason the greasers didn't attack the Soaks is the greasers can't. Like the Soaks just pull up in their Mustangs. And there's like not as many people in the greasers, so you wouldn't go pick a fight with 4 guys if you're by yourself and they're all older than you. So I just think that the greasers they always defend themselves and never attack the Soaks.
All right, are there other people in the greasers other than just this small
Yeah, but
group
there's
of
like
people?
there's not as many.
But I was gonna say that in the story it says that they never attacked the whatever the soaps, and that they jumped like other greasers and they never jumped soaps or whatever.
Just because the Soaks beat him up for fun.
And it said that in the book.
But Jameson didn't read the book, so he's just making inquiries that are false. Big boy words.
Hey, I read chapter 6. So,
Alright, chapter.
I read a chapter, what weirdo.
So we haven't even assigned yet?
what?
Yeah, we read a chapter we haven't even assigned yet.
I started it and I didn't
But
fill
not
any
the
stuff.
rest of it.
Cass.
Okay, I'm just because normally I would let you go with the same question and then have you rewrite the answer that you wrote. That's how, based on kind of the conversation that you had. But because we didn't do this for each chapter, I'm just gonna stop you. But some good points that I am gonna point out that are made. So first of all, being reliable, because you were there and you witnessed something firsthand, might be a good reason to say that that someone is reliable. Ponyboy seems like an honest kid, right? He's been honest. We've seen evidence of him being honest throughout the story. This was just from the first chapter. But another thing is when we are getting, Mariam had a really good point, because when we are getting the story from one person's perspective, we can't be completely reliable about that one person, about what that one person is saying. You guys probably have remembered talking about situations where like a group of people see an accident happen, okay? And everybody probably has a different story about what happened because they're taking it from their perspective, okay? They all notice different things. They all feel different things because of their past experiences. So when Ponyboy is telling the story, it doesn't mean he's lying, okay? But it's told from his perspective. It is one-sided. We're not getting anybody else's perspective. And it doesn't mean he doesn't believe what he's saying. It's what he feels about the situation. It's what he noticed about the situation. It's his experience. Other people's experiences might be different, right? Like if Bob or Randy was telling the story, the story might look differently, right? Like somebody said, actually Jameson's point, about him not talking about times that greasers attack the Soch. I think he does, like Luke said, he does talk about Dally being a criminal, right? And even though he's a really good friend of his, he does talk about two-bit stealing, right? So he's reliable in that sense because we see that he doesn't say that the greasers don't do anything wrong, right? So we can rely on him somewhat, but there is a little bit of the fact that we're not getting the Soch side. We're not hearing them say, that like Ariam said, you're gonna make things look better for yourself, right? When you're telling a story, you're gonna give your defense. That doesn't mean it's a lie. That doesn't mean it's untrue. It's just their perspective. It's not somebody else's perspective. So sometimes we think about that when we're reading, that we're getting one perspective, especially if the story's first person. We're getting that person's point of view. We don't know what anybody else is thinking or feeling, or we know that Ponyboy's a good guy, right? Because we know what he thinks and what he feels, and that he has a lot of feelings. But we don't get Bob or Randy's feelings. We maybe do a little bit in some of the conversations they have. We kind of get what Cherry feels, right? And she's a Soch, so we get her perspective. But we don't get it entirely. So we may not be able to take everything that he says as 100% the way that it was. All right.
Next topic.
I also do think though, when it says because in the situation I'm the biased, it doesn't seem as right, just because I feel like it'd be a lot more biased if it was a secondhand experience.
Sure.
Just because if Nathan told me about a car crash, I would not get the correct
Yeah.
on the point thing.
Yeah, so that's a good point that Logan made here too. That it's secondhand. Like it's probably more accurate if you were actually involved in the experience than if, Nathan told Leah what Adriana told him, right? Because have you all played that game Telephone before?
Oh, Epic one miss.
And usually the message at the end isn't the same as the message that it started with, especially if it's a more complicated message, right? So that's a good point Logan is making, is that if someone is right there experiencing it, it's probably more accurate than someone else telling about something that they heard about, right? Yeah, okay. So the second question with that, how does the point of view influence the story then? Based on what I said, what Logan said, what all your classmates said, how does the point of view, it's told from Ponyboy's point of view. By the way, Ponyboy wasn't the person who killed the Soch. He was there. It was actually Johnny who killed the Soch, right?
Ooh, Johnny.
So that's the other thing. Whose side do we tend to be on when we're reading this story?
The main character.
Yeah, we tend to. Everybody who reads this story tends to be rooting for the greasers. So, would you say the point of view that this story is being told from influences whose side the readers are on?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Because we're getting all of his thoughts and feelings on it. We know what he's thinking, okay? We kind of build a relationship with that character and with his close friends, right? So we tend to understand them better. We understand where they're coming from better because we're learning what they're thinking and feeling. So definitely the point of view affects this story because it affects how the reader feels about the characters in the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. All right, so if it was told from someone else's, we might get a different feeling. All right, what time is it? 11:24. Should I ask another one?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. Says, how does the author foreshadow at the end of chapter 2? So basically, I'm going to ask the next question because we probably can't think back to chapter 2 and know exactly what was foreshadowed. What is the significance of Johnny's story of being beat up? Why is that story significant? Go
But
ahead.
he was beat up so severely he almost died, and that can really traumatize a person.
Okay, if you're going to say something, be loud enough for everyone to hear.
Yeah. Or drop your steel water bottle on the tile.
Because after he was beat up, he was also he got somewhat tougher in the background, but also more scared.
Yeah, Johnny got a lot more scared of everything. Like he was
He's a quiet
more
kid.
paranoid. Kind of had PTSD from getting beat up so bad he could have died.
Wait, this is Johnny or?
No, it's not Johnny. It's okay.
Oh my gosh.
He was the door.
Do not.
about that. He almost died. It affected Johnny. He became very scared. He became more paranoid. And somebody said PTSD, right? What else would you say? Anybody else besides Ariam or Logan have something to say about this? Why is this story significant? Why did the author include this?
I feel like he also got more like ruthless. Like if someone were to come after him before that, he just wouldn't accept the beating. But now, like he did, he stabbed him with a 6-inch switchblade.
Love that.
Johnny does.
He also got more accepted in the greasers thing.
Shut up, I was gonna talk.
Well, sit down, because I'm talking. Never again. I want you to be the last person to ever say that. No. Anyways, yeah. So,
What did you say, Ariam?
Shut up, Meg.
he got more accepted into the greasers because now they were like, no.
My stuff.
What happened, man?
I don't care. Shut up.
They also got a lot softer on him, like during the movie when Johnny punched Allie, and
This is my seat.
when Johnny punched Allie and told him like lay off the girls, Allie would like beat up anyone else, but since it was Johnny, they always were like had a soft spot for him, just 'cause what he went through.
Tommy, you have something?
Thinking, but
Revenge. Revenge.
Jameson, stand up and expand on that.
Like, if they did it before, he would have done nothing for me. Like, he just let it happen. But now he got, like, stronger, so he was defending himself.
That's what the more ruthless is.
Mm-hmm. Kind of a connection. Okay, good points, you guys. And it kind of your answers kind of led into answering the next question, which was, how is this important to the plot of the novel? So why is the fact that Johnny got beat up so badly that he almost died, which made him become more scared, become more paranoid that something might happen, made him be more willing to want to defend himself because he was so scared. Also some really good points here about, the greasers already had a soft spot for him. Why?
Because he was
She
also
got home.
abused a ton at home, and for him to get beat all the time at his house and get so hardened from it and then get beat up to the point where he cried, had to be pretty bad.
Yeah. So they already had a soft spot because they knew he had like a bad home life, right? And not that theirs was great, but he actually got beat up at home, right? And he actually felt like nobody wanted him at home. So he kind of became like the greasers took care of him, right? And like who said this one? So Ariam said he was more accepted that way, so he kind of became theirs, like they took care of him, right? Like his family. And then also, like Logan said, they became softer on Johnny. Like when Dally, didn't beat him up for like standing up to him, right? He kind of was like, okay, it's Johnny, right? So yeah, so that also made them want to defend Johnny more. So all of this, how does this contribute? Why is this detail about Johnny getting beat up? Why is that important to the plot of the story? Ariam?
Because now that he's gotten touched, he killed someone, and then that's gonna make Ponyboy run away with him, because blah, 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 blah.
Okay. Do you think he would have, so this point, it contributed to him stabbing someone. Do you think he would have stabbed someone if he hadn't been beat up to the point where he was almost dead?
No.
Actually,
No.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but it's probably more likely, and especially as we keep reading and we hear what Johnny's thinking, because did Johnny feel bad that he actually killed someone?
Well, yeah, he did.
Yeah, he had a lot of remorse, right, about that. It affected him, but he did it because he was so scared and so paranoid, and he did it, and he thought Ponyboy was going to be killed, right? Which then he could be killed. So that event, telling about Johnny being beat up so badly by the Socs where he was almost dead, definitely influences the rest of the plot, contributes to, it's really important to the plot because it gives Johnny motivation for what he did. Do you think it helps readers understand why Johnny did what he did?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, is it okay what Johnny did?
No.
No, it's not. But do we tend to empathize with him a little bit because of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, or understand how it could have happened more? Yeah, okay. So it definitely influences the plot. All right, we're going to stop our conversation.